So yes, I'm going to share my screen shortly. But before I do, please kindly indicate if you've downloaded the file I posted on the Discord channel. Just kindly indicate you've downloaded the file.
Okay, people who have
Okay, so you can just react to
you can just react to we
so
have
this is
people
not
who
to
raise their
volunteer
hands.
to
This is not
speak.
to volunteer to speak.
Esther, I can hear an echo. Maybe you want to adjust your yeah. So okay, so thank you. So right now we're calling on volunteers. This for the volunteers. Six as usual, six volunteers. Yeah, they will just be like my co-facilitator during this training. So in case if yeah anything is not clear to them, I would reach out. So six people quickly, we have a lot to do. Okay, I've seen the six. I Esther, kindly grant them mic access as well. I can see more than six. The first six you can see, Esther. Grant them
Number
access.
is six.
Okay. Okay, so thank you. Thank you. So I'll just share my screen shortly. I'll share my screen shortly. So yesterday we touched on data modeling. I showed some array functions as well. Today we are going to continue from where we stopped yesterday, but I'm going to do a bit of a recap, and I'm going to probably do the process today of bringing in the data, then loading it to Power Pivot, then we'll go from there. We'll go from there. But I've explained what you need to know basically on Power Pivot. You have your facts table, which contains your daily transaction, your daily record, your your fact table normally consists of your IDs and your date column and your we also have your IDs, date columns and things you want to aggregate, your numbers. That's what your fact table comprises of. While your dimension contains things you want to slice your fact table by. Oh, we made so amount last year. Okay, what product made that amount? What quantity? At what point in time did we make that amount as well? So those are the questions that we would quickly that data modeling can help you answer. And I mentioned before, we have two types. We basically have something called normalization. I shared the slide as well on that, and denormalization. So normally when you download a data set, probably from Cargo, or probably from any of the popular sites people download data set from, normally you see all the data contained in a single file. That's what we normally term as a highly denormalized file. But the truth is, in the real business scenario, in the real business scenario, we have different roles in data. And I'm sure probably Esther took this at the very beginning of our training. We have the data scientists, data engineers, and the data analysts. So the data in the real business scenario, the data engineers don't don't give us data in that format, or data all stored on a single spreadsheet. No, in the real business scenario. So how it happens is data is being gathered across different workbooks, different pieces of information, or different tables contain different pieces of information. And that is exactly why I shared the data set, which I shared with us yesterday. So if we go through the data set, I shared yesterday, I shared today, sorry, not yesterday. We have sales Power Pivot CSV. This file contains all the day-to-day sales transaction that happen in the business. All the day-to-day. Somebody comes to the business. Uh, uh, just quickly open it. Somebody comes to the business and the person purchases a product. An employee is responsible for that purchase. in most cases scenario where you go in most case scenario rather, when you go to a store, you go to a store, you want to buy something. You want to buy something. So at the point in time where you went to buy something, you have a transaction ID, you have a transaction date being recorded. That's the period in which you bought something. Then you have the transaction time. At what point in time did you did the transaction occur? And you have the store ID. Um, the store ID that tells you the location of where the store is, especially for large scale organizations which they have multiple stores underneath them. Then the staff is responsible for this sale. You also have the customer ID. So ideally, somebody is probably populating this information, or a machine is populating this information in a spreadsheet. In a spreadsheet, that's what we have here. And this table, which I told you, which contains your IDs, your dates and your quantities, they grow every day. This table, so today we have a date and we have a time. Tomorrow somebody else will come and purchase a product, will come and buy something. So you have a date and you have a time attributed to it as well for tomorrow's transaction. So this table will keep on growing, and that's why it's termed the fact table. Fact table keeps on growing, keeps on growing. Then your dimensions tell you more about your fact. Oh, we have a staff ID here, but who was the staff? Okay, can you provide us more information about this staff that was responsible for this transaction? Can you tell us what store this transaction happened in? Okay, can you tell us which customer was responsible for this transaction? And those tables which you have, product lookup, employee lookup, they are telling us more information. They are giving us more information about this fact table. And remember, the idea of going about normalization or denormalization, the idea of going about normalization ideally is because one of the major reasons why power pivot was introduced earlier back, if you remember, I yesterday's session I talked a little bit about the history of Power BI in a way, but it was geared towards the reason why Power Pivot came into play. One of the reasons why Power Pivot came into play is because the normal Excel rows and columns have a limitation. So we know this record which I have, this sales by store pivot store data that I have, it will keep on growing. It will keep on growing. At this point in time, we have 909,000 rows. We have 909,000 rows. So the information will keep on growing. Somebody else will come here again, probably buy something. So this data we keep on growing, we keep on growing, we keep on growing. So so that now sort of brought up the idea of introducing something called data modeling and using Power Pivots. Rather than loading everything in Excel, you can load to a connection, then link tables together based on a relationship. So what data modeling in essence does is it reduces redundancies, it reduces the time it takes for you to be duplicating. Because if imagine somebody is manually typing these things, the store ID, the store ID, the person can come here, add another column or so, or the machine can come here, add another column, and in essence, adding another row and type, okay, store name, store, uh, let me just show what I'm saying, Control Shift plus, come here, store name, so come here again, store locations. Come here, store look. But it's in essence, if we keep on doing this every single time, this data will keep on extending, keep on growing. So that's what brought about the idea of doing something called data modeling, and we have something terms called normalization, denormalization. Denormalization is grouping related records in a single table, why normalization is the opposite, splitting a single table to different different tables. So that's just a recap of what I explained yesterday and what we talked about yesterday. So I'm just going to close this. I'm just going to close it. I just did a brief recap on it. So now, how did we go about linking things together? So I said Power Pivot, in essence, once you understand the reason why you need to do it, the next thing is just linking and defining your relationships, defining your relationship. So, and in the table that in the PDF that I sent, I kept some core terms you need to know. We have different types of relationship. We have something called the one to many. We have the many to many. We have the one to one. One to many is saying is that one record is related to many occurrences on a table. One record is related to many occurrences on a table. You still see the application when you go to Power BI and other other scenarios, but that's the idea of it. And how the data model relationship works is that your dimension is normally on at the one side, because your dimension tables will contain unique values. They won't contain duplicate values. It contain unique values. So your dimension table is normally on the one side. That means one record. That means there's one staff, we have only one ID. We only have one staff ID, basically. But on that sales table, one staff will be responsible for many transactions that will happen. So on the dimension, you have one, on the dimension itself, the dimension table, you have one occurrence of that staff name, and it will tell you more information about that staff. But on the fact table, which is the many side, that staff could have been responsible for many transactions to take place. That's one to many type of relationship. So right now, I just did a recap. We did this yesterday. You can revisit the video which we covered yesterday, but I don't want to dwell too much on it again. Probably at the end of the session, if you have questions as well, I could answer them as well. So I shared the data set before so that we can look into the data set and understand what is going on. And I believe a lot of us, we've looked into the data set. And by looking into the data set, let me ask a question. Did some of the terms start becoming self-explanatory to us? My volunteers, looking into the data set, did some of the things become self-explanatory to us? Hello?
Well, there are some reactions, thumbs up and all, in case the
Okay.
volunteers are not talking. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. That's fantastic. So remember yesterday what I did was from CSV. So the reason why it's a comma separated file that I'm using, CSV file, the CSV is not itself Excel. So most times when you download files, you see CSV, you see Excel. There's CSV represent comma separated file. It could be in a notebook, which is the file I shared with us on the Discord channel, is a CSV file. The file I shared with you too is also a CSV file. So if you try to connect to it via from Excel, it won't work. It is from CSV, from CSV. So if you click on from text CSV, which is what I did, get data, the normal process in which you bring data into your Power Query. Then I'm going to just go to the location where I have the files in. I'm going to go to the location where I have the files in. Uh, Datakliq Excel. Then I'll just select the CSV I want, import, import. So I'm going to go to transform data. Then I'm going to add others in. So the data set, I made it very easy so that there's no real additional transformation you need to do. You're just bringing in the data to your Power Query. So new source from file CSV again. All I'm just doing now is I'm bringing the other files to my Power Query. Employee lookup, I'm bringing it into my Power Query. Okay. New source from file text CSV product lookup. I'll bring it into my Power Query. The files I shared, these are the same files I shared with you. Though I'm going to include one other file to the file which I shared. Though I wanted to initially show us something on Power Query, but given time, I'm thinking should I not should I not so maybe I wouldn't, so I will just bring in the data. I wanted to show us how we can create a date table on Power Query, but I will leave that to my colleagues that will be covering the Power BI session as well. So stay tuned. They have a lot of interesting things for you in the Power BI session as well. So from text CSV, and I will select the last file I need, import. Okay, so because I wouldn't be bringing in, I won't be showing you how to create a date table with Power Query. Like I said, I'll leave it to my colleagues to do justice to that. Uh, I'm going to bring in a calendar table. So it's always best when you're analyzing data, it's always best you have a point in time you can reference in your data. You will have dates, you have transaction dates, you have dates in which things occurred. But having a calendar table can let you do for some further nice analysis, some time-based intelligence calculations, and some other things. Like, what do I mean? If you want to check, oh, we made so and so revenue. At what point in time did we make it? Your normal calendar date will probably tell you. Your normal dates column will show you what point in time it happened. But if you now want to do some further drilling into your data, that point in time for your business, it could have been a um a public holiday for your business, not even the general world. It could have been a public holiday for your business. So in this data set which we have, there's nothing showing us public holiday, non-public holiday. You have the same data set with me. You can check from your end. There's nothing showing us public holiday, non-public holiday. And there are more stuff like that as well that you will need to do some further analysis on. So you now think, so for me to do all this further time-based intelligence analysis, if I have time-based questions as well, why don't I create a calendar table? Why don't I create a calendar table? A calendar table. And that's what I wanted to initially show here. But you can also bring in a calendar table which you already have. If you already have a calendar table before, you can bring that in as well. Or you can create a calendar table with Power Query here. When you go to Power BI, you learn how to create it with DAX as well. So right now we are on Excel. We're on Excel. Power Query editor. This Power Query editor. Before I proceed, hope I'm not going too fast. Before I proceed, hope it's fine.
Yes, sir, you're fine.
Okay. 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 Thank you. So thank you for that. So we've covered this yesterday. So I'm just trying to do a quick recap so that we'll be where we need to be today. And I know a lot of us have lots of questions saved for us. So right now I'm going to do text CSV. I have a calendar table. I'm going to reference that calendar table. I will drop it up in that file that file which I shared with us. I'll drop the calendar table in that file which I shared with us as well. So please remind me in case if I forget. So I'll drop the calendar file there with us. So this is just the simple calendar table I have. So right now I have the data set which I want. I've loaded all the data which I need. I loaded all the data which I need. So right now I'm going to close and load to. I'm not going to load it directly to Excel. I'm not going to load it directly to Excel. I'm going to click on close and load, but I'll use the second option, close and load to, and I will select only connection. Only create a connection. What this means is we won't see, when we do this, we won't see the file on our Excel itself. We won't see the individual file on our Excel, but it will be stored in connection mode. It will be stored in the connection mode. And by doing this, we can now click on this, add this data to data model. Add this data to data model. We don't need to see the file in our tables, in our sheets in Excel. If we want to see it, you can just select table, but select this, add this to data model. That would add it to Power Pivot itself. So the moment I'm good, I can click on OK. I can click on OK. Can click on OK. And it's loading, it's loading, it's loading. So the files are large. You can see the file size as well. Okay. So it has loaded it into the data model. So right now, I will click on, the moment I've loaded this into the data model, I will click on Power Pivot, Power Pivot, Power Pivot. I've showed us earlier before how we can get this Power Pivot on our screen. I've showed us earlier before. You can go to your file, more options. If you don't have it, I've showed this in an earlier video. Go to add-ins, select com add-ins, com add-ins, click on go, then select Power Pivot for Excel. Power Pivot for Excel. I've showed this earlier before, so that's why I did it quickly. If you've not done it before, you may want to rewind the video a bit. So we have it in our Power Pivot. We have it in our Power Pivot. We have it in our Power Pivot already. So I'm going to do manage. I'm going to click on manage. We have it in our Power Pivot already. I'm going to click on manage. So the moment I click on manage, I have this Power Pivot interface on my screen. You have the home, the design, the advanced. The home, if you want to normally bring the data into Power Pivot, you can actually bring it into Power Pivot itself by going to Power Pivot. It's Power Pivot itself. But the method I showed us is by loading it from Power Query to Power Pivot. You can actually from Power Pivot, but the process is a little bit, the interface is not as new um, as doing it directly from Power Query to Power Pivot. So we have from database, from data service, from other service, existing connections. We have this refresh button. We have this pivot table button. We have this find. We have this auto sum. Right now, I'm just going to click on diagram view. Diagram view. Diagram view gives us this interface on my screen. This interface on my screen, and this interface on my screen, we have all these tables right here. We have all these tables right here. think there's slight delay. Okay. Okay, so we have these tables on my screen. Looking, where's my calendar? Okay, my calendar is here. So right now, the moment we've understood what is linking, what is telling us more information, how can we know more information about these customers? How can we know more information about these customers? We have to link when you are doing VLOOKUP, like when you are doing VLOOKUP and lookup functions, you look for the lookup value, right? You look for the lookup value. And the lookup value is what is common in both tables. So that's essentially what this is. So you have to provide it your lookup value. Basically, you have to tell it what column uniquely identify these customers, which is your customer ID. Okay, and is this column also present in this table? And yes, it's present in this table. So I'm just going to drag. Like I said, it's just drag. Just link and link. The moment I've linked it, we have a relationship and it's showing one to many. So if I want to see the underlying relationship that I have there, I can right click and do edit relationship, edit relationship, edit relationship. And I can edit the relationship as well to change, to manually select what is linking the two columns together. I can do this method as well, or you can just drag. It's normally very, very easy to drag. But that only happens when you understand what you want to achieve. You can't just drag anything without understanding what you want to do. So right now, staff ID to staff ID, we have this relationship established. So you know what these tables we will be doing, these dimension tables, they will be what will be filtering these sales by sales power pivot table. What do I mean? If I want to find out, okay, what this staff in particular made, I will select this staff and I'll now come to this table and select a quantitative field. Don't worry, I'll show it when I insert pivot table from it as well. So right now I'm going to do products. What links products to the sales by power pivot table? Are my volunteers active? Everywhere is silent today. Are they active? What links this? What links product lookup? We have the data with us. What links product lookup to this sales? Okay, so you
Product
can
ID. Product ID.
product ID. Thank you, product ID. So because the product ID tells us it's what uniquely identify the product, right? It's what uniquely identify the product, and it's common, is what's common between the two tables. Then we have store lookup. We have store lookup. What links this store? What gives us more information about this store and what's present in this store lookup table and present in this sales by transaction, sales by power pivot table?
Store ID too.
Store
Store
ID.
ID.
Exactly. So you see, I'm just linking and linking. It's very, very easy, but you need to understand the concept behind it. So the next thing is what links this calendar table. This is the only table you don't have, which I'll share after the session. What links this calendar table to the sales power pivot table?
Transaction date.
Exactly. Transaction date. Transaction date tells us more about the transaction. So when the transaction happened. And in this type of relationship, if we read the document I sent to you, what is this type of relationship called? If we read the document I shared with us, what's this type of relationship called?
This is one to many relationship.
Okay, yeah, one to Okay, you got the right answer, but okay, what's this type of model? So in the document I sent, we had something called types of model. What type of model is this? So think through it. What type of model is this? I know people are quickly opening the document now. Yeah, people are quickly opening the document, but you can read the document, read it, read what it says, and try to get the answer. What type of model is this?
Star schema.
A star schema. Okay, what did they define as a star schema? For what was defined as a star schema in the document? So that for those that don't know, the document is in the Discord channel as well. So, but what was defined as a star schema?
Visual representation resembles a star
Mm-hmm.
with a central tables.
You said with a
With a central fact table.
okay, with a central fact table and
Surrounded
and
by dimensions.
okay, surrounded by dimensions, surrounded by
Yes,
dimensions.
yes,
Yeah,
there
so
is like
exactly. Exactly. So that this is what we know as a star schema type of relationship. It's very efficient. It saves you problem of writing a lot of DAX. Don't worry, you'll go into that later on. DAX is another set of problem, but star schema is very efficient type of data model. There are more data models as well. But this the star schema. The moment you've done your linking, you've linked tables which relate to each other, then you can now come to this pivot table and you click on this pivot table drop down and you select pivot table, pivot table, pivot table. I can create it in a new worksheet. I can create it in an existing worksheet. I'll create it in a new worksheet. Existing worksheet, I have to specify a location to drop it in. I'll just create it in a new worksheet. I'll create it in a new worksheet and we have it like this. And right now I can go on to start building my pivot table reports. So remember, Power Pivot came to solve two main issues of pivot table. It actually solves three. I'll mention the third one, but we won't really go too deep into the third one as well because you'll most likely cover that in the Power BI session as well. So Power Pivot came to solve the issue of Excel size issue, which is one thing. Power Pivot came to solve the other issue of pivot table. With normal pivot table, you can't connect to data of two or more tables at the same time. You can't do that with normal pivot table. So Power Pivot has solved that issue for you. And the third thing, how many of us have tried to write formulas in pivot table? Not formulas cells, not formulas referencing pivot table. No, formulas in pivot table. How many of us have tried that? Have you tried to write formulas in pivot table?
I haven't.
Okay, thank you for your response. More response, more response. Have you tried to write formulas in pivot table? Or have you tried that? Or you just notice is the default that pivot table normally gives you, right? So if you want to do some further calculation and further analysis, you won't be able to do it with normal pivot table. Am I right or am I wrong?
I am not sure. Must say that.
Okay, so let me see. Two people, two people's hands are up. Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you. So yeah, the answer is no, you can't normally right? Well, you can do something like calculated fields in pivot table. That's another topic entirely, but you can't really like express yourself really in pivot table. You have to use the pivot table drag and drop in pivot table, which is actually not really a problem. It's what pivot table was supposed to be designed to be, drag and drop type interface. But you may want to do some further analysis like, oh, how much did we make last year? How much did we make last 2 years? How much did we make um how much did we make quarterly? Time intelligence type of calculations that you wouldn't normally be able to do by default with manual normal pivot table. So that's what Power Pivot here can also help you to do by doing something known as DAX. And DAX represent data analysis expression. Data analysis expression. You will do DAX in Power BI. You do DAX. Though I am not going to show us DAX here. You do DAX in Power BI, but DAX is the formula language behind Power Pivot as well, and is also applicable in Power BI as well. So that's why we structure the course in a way that when you are going towards Power BI section, you've covered some foundations you need to know before you jump right into Power BI itself. And Excel is the best place to start. Before I even learned Power BI, I first started from Excel as well. So if your Excel knowledge is very, very grounded, learning Power BI will be very, very easy for you. So learning Power BI will be very, very easy. So right now that I've loaded this my Power Pivot, right now that I've loaded it, I can now go on to just do some simple reports. So right now I want to see what product probably had the highest quantity sold. So I'm going to select product, and I selected product in my product lookup table. I'm going to scroll down in my sales Power Pivot, which is my facts table. I'm going to come to quantity sold and tickets, quantity sold and ticket. And this tells me what quantity each of these products sold. Quantity each of these products sold. But what if I want to get the revenue or the income from these products? If you remember, in the sales data, you have the sales data with you. Did we have anything like revenue on the sales data? Did we have revenue? You have the sales data with you. This sales Power Pivot, did you have revenue on the data set or total sales? So is that a yes there? But I think maybe I may need more more volunteers. But yeah, do we don't have revenue on that data set. So I've answered my question. We don't have revenue on that data set. That's sales by store data set, right? We don't have revenue on it. But we have quantity and we have unit price. We have quantity and unit price. I have a question. It's a simple question. I want somebody to answer that question. I want somebody to answer that question. When you have your quantity and you have your unit price, can we get something like revenue or sales?
Yes, we can, definitely.
Okay, so how would we do that? How would we do that? Just the maths formula, or so you have your quantity. We know how much quantity was sold, and we know the price of the quantity. How would we get our revenue? So how
We'll
would
do
we do that?
unit price multiplied by the quantities sold.
As exactly. Thank you very much for that. So revenue is unit price multiplied by the quantity. But you see, I can't. That's why I said with normal pivot table, can I write any function? What most people would have probably done is they'll probably tick on unit price here, then they'll now come here and probably do this unit price is relatively high. But they now come here and do, okay, so I need to change this unit price to maybe average or so. Let me just change. So I'm going to sum my value by, let me see how the average is. Okay, this makes a lot of sense, because I was like, how come this unit price? So by default, it aggregated all the unit price that they did. So right now, what they will do is that they will now multiply the two of them together. But with power pivots, you can create a measure with power pivot. You can create a measure with power pivot, and that measure is by using DAX. So I'm just going to create a simple measure, very simple measure. It's not complicated. I'm just going to click on measures, click on new measure, and I'm going to call this is the measure interface in Power Query, in Power Pivot. This, you see the table name. This is the table the measure is going to be dropped in. I can change the table to the sales by Power Pivot table. I can change the table to this table, and I'm going to call this revenue. Right? So inside this, I'm going to come here and do just simple. Is this sum or average of unit price? What should I do? So let me do average of unit price multiplied by, or maybe some may be best, but I'm just showing how it could work. Uh, so let me just multiply it directly. I'm going to multiply it directly. So I'm going to come here. So when I start typing equals to, and I start typing, I get something called IntelliSense, which gives me the tables which I have, the columns which I have in the table. I can select this, press my tab button, then multiply by, and I start typing sales, and I'll come here and select unit price. Where do I have unit price? Yeah, unit price, and hit my tab button. So I can now check, is this formula correct? Okay, so it's saying a single value in the column cannot be defined. This can happen when a measure formula refers to a column that contains many values without specifying an aggregation. So yeah, I should have kept this in sum. So I'm going to keep it in sum. I was just trying to make it quite simple for us. Then I'll do sum. So right now, if I do check formula, no error, right? No error. So what is this doing? It's doing the sum of the quantity sold table times the sum of the unit price table. I can check if this makes sense. If I don't like the result of my measure, I can now go ahead to edit the measure. I can go ahead to edit the measure. So I have this as the revenue. I have this as the revenue. If I checked in the data, if I just manually multiply the quantity and the unit price, and I checked, what did I get? Let me even do that. Let me go to the data. So this can now give me an idea of, oh, how best should I have done this calculation? So I'm just opening the data for us to see as well. So I'm just going to come here. Okay, quantity unit, so unit price. It makes sense. But because we are filtering by a particular product, or filtering just by that particular product. So that particular product would have sold a whole lot of quantities. It would have sold a whole lot of quantities at a whole lot of price, basically. It would have sold that. So the formula makes sense because we're just talking of the quantity and the units sold. Right now, what I can do to just check if I'm going to deselect this product. Let me deselect this product. And I'll just select something in this table, maybe customer ID. A customer ID is a number, and so by default it aggregated it. Let me move it to rows. And I have the quantity sold by each of these customers as well. So what I'm just doing right now is just confirming the calculation made sense and from what I can see, it makes a whole lot of sense. So it's working. So that's just simple way of you doing simple formulas and function in pivot table. I just came to new measure, and I created a measure. I named it and I just did some simple calculation with it. I just said I should show you. So when you learn DAX in Power BI, that knowledge you can come back to Excel, Power Pivot, and apply it in Power Pivot as well. So they are the same. They are the same way. They are the same way. So now that I've gotten that result, I've gotten this, I can now go ahead to start doing designing my slide, designing my reports, and doing some other stuff for my reports. Are we following before I go ahead? Are we following any question up to this point before I go ahead to start designing reports? And
No, sir, from my end, there is no question.
okay, so more people. Any question? If you have question, just raise your hand.
I don't have any question.
So no question to now. So it's self-explanatory to now, right?
None so far. Go back and none from my side.
Okay, thank you. So even aside from my facilitators or my co-facilitators, rather, any question from the audience? Any question? Or I'm good to go. If I'm good to go, just keep the thumbs up button. I'm good to go. Keep the thumbs up button. I'm good to go. Okay. Okay. So it's actually seeming very, very simple. So I like that. I like that. So we're done. All we just did was we linked. Then I came here, created a measure, and that measure I created, I can see it. If I go to this sales by power pivot table, I can see that measure I've created. It has the FX button. That's the measure I created. It has this FX button. So that works and that works. So we can now go on to create a lot of reports and nice reports on it. But before I go ahead to start doing the reports, right now I want us to look at the data and tell me what sort of insight, sort of interesting reports would you like to see? We have the data from our end. What sort of reports would we like to see? So just quickly, just some reports. My audience, what type of report would you like to see? You have the data from your end, just take a peek. The only thing you don't have is the calendar table, and don't worry, it's not really that pressing as that now. What sort of insight would you like to see? Okay. Hey, hi, isn't it? Yeah, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, sir. For my expect a report that has to do with the quantity of goods sold, maybe,
Yeah.
as well as the revenue generation. Hello?
Yes, I got that quantity of goods sold and revenue, right? So I'm just typing it,
Yes.
revenue. maybe total revenue generation, right? So somebody
Yes, sir.
else. Yeah, thank you very much. Nice report. Okay.
Okay. You can have revenue generated by store location or store, a particular store.
Okay. Revenue generated by store, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh, I think you can
I think
have
uh,
employees and their sales.
Employee and
Like
sales.
yes, yes, sales general. I'd be sales
I,
employees or employees with the
I,
highest sales, stuff like.
Okay. So just one, two more, just two more before we go right
yes,
in.
yes,
Can I
sir.
add to that?
And we can also have
Hello.
customer turn up, as in the amount of customers that bought the
Okay.
goods, maybe.
Total number of customers. Total number of customers, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We can also look at the best performing
Hello.
store.
Nice. Best performing store. Okay, so somebody has been trying to talk since, so please just go ahead, quickly go ahead, so we get right into it.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. We can also look at customer retention by employees.
Mhm. Okay. That's a very nice, a nice, um, nice child, nice report, but retention, right? But that will be a little bit more complicated
Um,
reports. So yeah, we can do that, but
we we we
given
we,
time.
we can assume that if customers certain customers tend to gravitate towards particular employees, we can assume that those employees are good with customer retention.
That's you know what, that's a really like, I really like that report. I really like that report. I would have loved to show it, but I love the challenge of that report we show. So please, right now, I want everybody to take note of this. This will be this type of report, because we have this data set and it will basically build to what our assignment will be. But this report, which my colleague said, maybe you can even send me a DM of the description of the report as well. I want us to think about how we can go about this report. Very nice report. I don't just want to show us, I want us to do some research as well. So customer retention, I like that report very much. So we can try it out as well, and I would love to see our us what we've come up with. So very nice report, very nice report. Very nice report. So I can just, let me just drag this down. So I have one, so I can do autofill and fill series. So we have 7 reports. 7 reports right here. 7 interesting reports right here. So right now I can just quickly even go ahead to start doing the report. So the first report we said we wanted to do is quantity sold. So I'm just going to come here and I'm just going to select quantity. So this is the quantity sold. This is the total quantity sold. So I'm going to go to pivot table, analyze, select entire pivot table. So the reason why I did this, or you can just highlight the full pivot table and Control C. You can now paste the pivot table elsewhere, but it's normally best you do select entire pivot table, because sometimes you don't know when you've selected something that is not a pivot, when you've selected outside the pivot table range, so it won't copy correctly. I've faced situations like that. So I've copied this. I can now paste it here. Control V. And this is what somebody asked this question. Somebody sent me this question that, oh, what if I want to move the pivot table down or so? So that's just the simple way you can do it. You can copy and paste it down, or you can come to, I'm clicking on this pivot table, click on pivot table, analyze, and do move pivot table. Move pivot table. You can move it to another location in the workbook. So that also work but copying and pasting, you can do it with pivot table. And once you copied and pasted, you have another pivot table generated for you. That's the fast method. Fast method. So right now, what's the second report they said want to see? The total revenue, right? So I'm just going to change this from quantity sold. I'm going to reference this revenue that we created, this DAX calculation that we created for revenue, right? This DAX calculation we created for revenue. So I've selected this. So this is the revenue. Then what's the next report we said we want to see? Revenue generated by store. So you know what I'm doing is I'm generating each of the pivot table reports so that I can now have something called a dashboard. And a dashboard in essence is a snapshot of all your reports on a single page. All your reports on a single page. And all I'm doing, we did pivot table last time, I'm just ticking and unticking. Ticking and unticking. I'm going to drag this revenue out, or I could have just ticked it out. And what's the report that we said we wanted to see? Revenue generated by store. I'll just come here, select revenue, then come to store. Did I bring in the store table here? Select. So there's no store name, ironically, but I can keep store tag or store city. Anyone. Is it just retail business that is giving us this revenue? That's interesting. Let me give store city. Deselect store type, store city. I also have to cross check my query. I didn't mistakenly. I will cross check my query as well, just to be sure I brought in the right thing as well. But we have store city, and this is revenue for the store city. Revenue for the store city. So the next report, which we said we want to
What if
see.
you do by store manager?
Okay, we can do by store manager. Just ticking on it. You just tick on the manager. But am I sure there's the manager is numbers, right? If I check the data set, I think it's numbers. So they could have been another lookup table, but that would cause us to do something like a snowflake schema, which tells us more information about the managers. Uh, because this manager that we have here is representing a code. So 6, 16, and 31 represent a particular manager also. So we can do this, but I'm thinking of just leaving it to store city, something we can visually see. So store city works as well. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to copy this, Control C. I'm copying and pasting. The next thing is, what's the next report we said we want to see? Total number of customers. Okay, employees and sales. Employees and sales. Let me do that. So I'm going to untick this. So I'm going to click on employee table. I'm going to click on, we didn't do full name. So I'll just use their first name. We could have probably done full name. We could have done full name. That would have been best. But I'll use their first name. And this works. This works as well. Employee and revenue. And the last, okay, total number of customers. I can just select this pivot table, copy it, Control C, come here, Control V, remove this. Okay, so it's important for you to note if there's something below your pivot table or by the side of it, it could affect you when you copy and paste. So I'm going to, yeah, but it's copied and pasted. Um, so I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it somewhere else so that I don't get that error message. The error message I got was that there was something within the range that is affecting it from pasting. So I'm going to drag this out. Yeah, so I'm fine. And for that question, total number of customers, um, I can either drag customers from here there, but it's best I come to this sales power pivot and drag the customer ID to values. But with this show me the distinct customers. So I can now click on this, which I will. I don't want this to be sum. I'm going to go to summarize value as this distinct count, let's say. 222,050 customers. Is that correct? Is that correct? Total number of customers. Is that correct? So we can always cross check this. This is just distinct count. I just showed value as, and I summarize value by, sorry, and I selected distinct count. This is the distinct count of the total number of customer IDs I have there. And it should be correct, but I have to cross check from the data. It's always good to cross check your data and be sure you're not dealing with wrong value. So I'm going to do it with Excel. Cross to count A. I can use count since it's a number, right? Count. Press my button. Now for me to count unique values. Remember, if you know the input and the output of an expression, you can mix, or a formula, you can mix them together. So I'm going to use count and I'm going to use unique. What I'm just doing now is I want to verify the values are accurate. So Control Shift down, then close my bracket. Let me see. So yeah, can you see this? This shows me that these are the unique customer IDs. These are the unique, you know, in this sales by power pivot tables, a customer can visit a store more than once, right? But this customer ID is peculiar to that customer. It's peculiar to the customer. So by counting the unique of it or counting distinct of it, you can see, oh, which particular customer that is. So I've done this and I've cross-checked. This is correct. This is correct. Now that we are done with the reports we want to generate, we can now go ahead to build out a layout for our dashboard. And the type of dashboard I want us to do is, before you do a dashboard, it's nice to have a wireframe. Well, I won't really dive into wireframe per se, but what I mean is just like a pictorial or a sketch of how you want your report to look. How you want your report to look. And I've gone ahead to create it in this file. So can we see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. We can see it.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, this is just something simple, not too technical, not too. It's just a quick wireframe, an idea of, okay, if I'm to go ahead to create this, what do I need? So just some simple stuff, right? And you can go ahead, you can do yours anyhow you like. You can go ahead to do more fancy design, more stuff. If design is your thing, if you're even a good graphic, if you're a good graphic designer, you'll probably enjoy visualization more. But one thing I suggest is you'll love visualization more in in you love visualization more in Power BI. It's also nice in Excel as well, but you love it more in Power BI. But you can play around with some things in Excel so you can achieve this as well. So that's just the layout. So I have an idea of the layout in which I want to do. The moment you've created a layout, a sketch of, oh, this should be in this place, that should be in that place, you can now think, okay, go and do it. So the truth is, designing your report takes a lot of time, So I wouldn't go ahead to design it fully, but I'm going to show how I did something as simple as that. It's not exactly the best. I just did it in few minutes because of the class. So you can go ahead to replicate yours however you like, however you want it to be. So right now, I'm going to get rid of the grid lines. So it's always nice to get rid of the grid lines. And I'm going to do the shortcut for it, Alt WVG. Or I could have come to View and get rid of the grid lines. And are we following? Are we following? Can you see my screen?
Clearly, sir.
Yes, we can. We can see your screen.
Okay. Okay, so, and I'm going to come to illustration, and I'm going to keep a shape. If you are very good in PowerPoint, this part is just very, very simple. If you are very good in PowerPoint as well, they're just very simple, just like you are doing things in PowerPoint. You are just trying to replicate it with Excel. So I'm going to insert a shape, and I'm going to select this rounded rectangle. Just going to draw it. But you know what? I want to be precise with the height and location. So I would like to have a 16 by 9 size dashboard. The reason why I'm saying 16 by 9 is because 16 by 9 is like, should I say, the standard canvas size. Power BI uses 16 by 9. And if I check on my Power BI, I can see the height and width that I require. So, but in Power BI is in PX, but in Excel, you are specifying the height in centimeters. So you have to specify the centimeters, the height and width in centimeters. So I can just check what the height and width of those stuff is. So I have the default screen size as we have. So I have the height and width. I've searched for it here. So in Power BI, the height is 720 px. So if I convert this to centimeter, I have 19 by 05 centimeter. So I have 19 by 05 centimeter. If I convert this to centimeter, which is the width, so I have 33.86 centimeter. So I can just come here, type 19.05. Or this under shape format. This is where I am, shape height. Then I'm going to type 19.05. Then the width, what was the width? Is it 37 or 33? 33.86. 33.86. Going to give 33.86, right? And hit enter. So right now, since I've adjusted this, I can just make this a little bit, not really too rounded rectangle, right? Then keep it like this on my screen. So I'm just doing design. I'm just doing a little bit of design. Don't worry, I won't go to that deep into it. Then I'll come to shape outline. And let me see. Shape fill rather. And keep no fill. Shape fill, no fill. So I don't want to see the color there. So I have this nice canvas on my screen. So the idea of this is so that I know the size that I'm working with. The size I'm working with for my dashboard. So in case if I need to print the dashboard or so, I know the size I'm working with. So I can zoom out so that we see how it is on the normal Excel. So this is the size, this is the area the dashboard will be on my Excel. So right now, we've generated the reports we wanted. I can come to insert, and I'm going to, under insert illustrations, shape rounded rectangle. I like rounded rectangle. Is my preference. You can use whatever you want. You don't have to follow this exact design pattern. You can make yours nicer as well. So I have this. I can do Control C. I have this as the layout. Control C. Come here, Control V. Then I'm going to reduce this size. Let me see. Let me look for 1.9 and I'll use 3.8. 3 is it 3.9 or 3.8? Let me try 3.8. So Control C, Control V, Control V. So I'm going to come here, probably here, and come here. So this will represent my cards. This will represent my unique piece of information, basically on my pivot table. So this will represent my cards as my card visuals as well. So if I want, you see how I'm struggling to get them to be aligned. But if I want to make them aligned very, very nice and neat, I'll hold my control key, click on one, click on the other one, click on the third one, come to shape format, click on this align button, and I can do what? Distribute horizontally. Distribute horizontally, so that gives a nice alignment. I can come on this align and I can do what? Align top. So everything is in the same size and same width. So I can now click on this and let me make this a light color. So I can click on this button, format shapes. So I have this format shape icon on my screen. Under the fill color, I'm going to select white or no fill. Select white. Yeah, I have this on my screen. Click on this again, click on this. Then line, if I want line, I can click on no line. But while it's selected, I can now go to shape effect, and click on glow. On glow. So we have this nice glow feel on my screen. We have this nice glow feel on my screen. So I just quickly did that now. Yeah, so this, I can even get rid of the border line on this. Click on no line, and I've gotten rid of the border line. There was a small border line on it. The next thing is I can bring in a title for this, my report, my dashboard. Call this. Um, I'm going to bring in a text box. This is a text box. Drag it here, and I'll call this. Should I use the same thing? Let me just use Datakliq. Datakliq Excel. Datakliq Excel. I can increase the height of it. Let me increase the height a bit. Let me reduce it a bit. Select the white color because I'm going to get rid of this white background color. I'll make it even bold. Then this white background color I'm going to keep on. So then click outside this shape color. I'm gonna click on it, or click on this rather. No fill. Yeah, click on this no fill. So I have this on my screen. So I have this on my screen. Datakliq Excel. No fill. I have this on my screen. The next thing is that circled shape that I kept there. I can go ahead and go to insert, illustration, shapes, bring in a circle. Let me see, bring in a circle. Hold my control key so I get a perfect, sort of perfect circle, right? This is too big. Reduce it a bit. Delete this. So I'll just go there again. Insert, illustration, shapes. Select this. Hold my control key. So I have this. I think this is nice size. Then I can bring it here. Then the fill color, I'm going to make it white. Going to make it white. I can remove line so the line doesn't obstruct it. Then we have something simple as this. Okay, this too, let me remove, there's a line there. So I have something as nice and neat as this, right? So the idea of this is my title. I can even give it a subtitle. So I can copy this, Control C, Control V, come here. I'll call this report for demo. Just call this report for demo. And I can make this italics. Reduce the size. Like I said, all I'm just doing is little design. So the next thing now, let's start bringing in our values into this so that it makes a lot of sense. So this one, under this sheet 2, this simple report we've done. So what I'll first do before I go ahead, I'll go to this pivot table analyze, then click on this options button. Then, okay, I've already unchecked it. You can uncheck it from your end. The reason why I want you to uncheck it is because when you reference this, it will be giving you one generate get pivot data formula, and it can be very, very annoying. Can be a nuisance basically. So uncheck it from your end. So click on sheet 3. I'm going to insert. Let me insert a text box under illustration. Let me just insert a text box. I can draw something here. Then under the formula bar, I'm just going to do equal to what I have here. And press enter. To have this value here, I can increase the size of it. Or it's just creating a card. All these stress with Power BI, there's a card visual with Power BI, but with Excel, unfortunately, there's no card visual. So you have to be creative a bit. So I'm going to copy this, Control C, so I have the title. So whoever is viewing this can know what's going on. Let me make this black. You can always rewind the video. It's going to be on YouTube. You can reduce the speed if you need to. Like I said, design can take a long time. So what's the title for this? Let me reduce the size because I'm going to drop this. What report did I say this is? Total quantity sold. Total quantity sold. Total quantity sold. So I can now bring this here. I have this card. So this shows me the total quantity sold. I can decide to increase this value as well. Increase it a bit. So we see everything. I can format it as well. I can come to this sheet 1 and give it the number format Control 1, or I could have just clicked and do number format, then select number, use 1000 separator. So I have this. So I can increase this a bit. Like I said, all I'm just doing is little design work. You really go into design work that you are doing Power BI. So let me I can get rid of the decimals. So, and select 0. Yeah. So I have this. Let me get rid of the line, no line. So we have something like this. So this is telling me the quantity sold in my dashboard, the quantity sold. I can copy this again, Control C, come here, Control V, drag it somewhere here. But I will change this, instead of this referencing before, I'll come here, cancel, I'll do equal to sheet 2. What other, this is the total revenue we made. This is the total revenue we made. I'll copy this so I can just drop it again. Control C, Control V. total revenue. Then the last thing which I need is, let me keep total customer, right? Total customer. So the same, copy, then keep this, call this total customer. I have something like this, Control C, copy it. So come here, Control V. So like I said, you can always slow down the video. It's because of time, and like I said, design takes a lot of time. So I'm not really slowing down on this. So we have this total customer. So we have this. So I have this simple report on my screen. This is a simple dashboard on my screen. I can bring in other elements. I can bring in other report as well on my screen. I can add in more reports, more stuff. So if you notice, one other thing I added to this, we can see this moving rocket, right? You can bring it in your dashboard. If you go to a site called flaticon.com, sorry, where do I have this? So flaticon.com. If you go to flaticon.com, you can get animated icons that you can use. It's just to give it probably a nice feel. This is flaticon.com. You can get some nice animated icons which you can use. I got this rocket. You can get anyone that best represents your scenario. You can get this, so you can download it. Download it as a GIF, and the moment it's done, it is saved somewhere. It is saved somewhere. Like, let me just download this as well. Download it, GIF, and it's saved somewhere. So the moment I've done this, I can now go to this report that I'm designing. I can go to the insert tab, illustration, pictures. Yeah, this is dependent on your version of Excel. So you have place in cell, place over cell. I can select place over cell. What place in cell means it will fix it to a particular cell. But I'm going to select place over cell, and I'm going to select this device, and I'm going to select, I get this today. Oh, the ones I got today. Okay, I got this. Guessing the others didn't finish downloading. So it's moving. I can now reduce the size of it, just to give it some nice design. You can pause it so that it's just a static image as well. Can pause it as well. Can keep the rocket here. Can keep the rocket here. Um, let me see, widen this complete. Oh, it was moving to my Google Drive. Okay. I can now bring in the others as well. Please, someone needs to be muted. Thank you. Thank you. So I have this insert, and now reduce the size of this as well. Keep it somewhere here. Let me move this a bit. So this is just a simple design of for the dashboard, the report. You can go ahead to play around it, design something nice, design something interesting, design something really good and useful. Really good and useful. So yeah, I can go ahead to do other designs and other report and dashboard, but like I said, it's best you will really enjoy it when you're doing Power BI, and Power BI is a lot easier to customize your design, and for visualization, Power BI is a lot easier. But this is just playing around with Excel to create something nice and neat with Excel. You have the video uploaded on YouTube, so you can rewind it in case if I was going a little bit fast, you can you can adjust it as well. So this is just a simple dashboard. You can bring in more charts, more reports, look into the data. You can create more than 50 reports from the data itself. You can create more than 50 reports from the data itself. Then just think through it. So this covers the power pivot. This covers the simple pivot table, which which I showed as well. The only other thing you need to know is choice of chart. So right now, if I want to use charts, and I'm going to do, I can do Alt F1 first, Alt F1 or Alt FN F1. I've showed how to design charts a bit before in the prior class. You can watch the recording for that again. I can change the chart type to, I can change it to a bar chart. It's important we note that charts are good visual communication of your data. Bar and column charts are best for categorical data. When you are comparing a category with your revenue, they are very good for that. Line charts are best for trend analysis. When you are checking a point in time, when you are checking, oh, how much did we make as a last year, last 2 years, last 3 years, line charts are for that. Your scatter charts is for correlation analysis. If you want to check um, with an increase in one measure, with an increase in revenue, mean an increase in customers, or so when you want to check correlation and analysis, that's what scatter chart are for. Maps are for when you want to do regional or geospatial analysis, when you want to check analysis based on a particular region. So maps are for that. You have area chart is similar with line chart, but one chart you need to be particularly careful about when using is this pie chart. Pie charts can be very misleading, especially like something like this. If I use the pie for this, it wouldn't best pie donut chart. They don't always best communicate the data accurately. I would advise if you are to use it, use them for when you have 2 or 3 categories. If you have more than that, it's advised you look for a better chart to better tell your story. Because like I said, from this number 1 looks like a rainbow. Number 2, I don't even understand what's going on here. So the idea of you using a chart is for you to communicate, oh, what is happening, why is this thing happening, and what are the factors driving this from happening. So that's just a brief overview of charts as well. I didn't want to go fully into this because you'll cover this in the Power BI section as well. But you have charts that you can use. You can play around with charts. The video, like I said, I showed how you can do some little design on charts as well. So you can play around with it. Bar and column chart for categorical data, line chart for trend analysis, scatter chart for correlation when you want to check if 2 factors are mutually driving themselves. Map chart is when you want to do geospatial or regional analysis. You want to check, oh, how much did our revenue make in a particular country? So maps can be best for that. You have other charts as well, which will be covered probably in the Power BI session. So thank you for that. So before we go, before we call it a day, and before I take questions, I said it earlier, and I'm not going to forget. I said I wanted to introduce us a little bit to VBA macro. So let me save this file so I don't I don't forget what I've done on this file. Let me just save it. It's always best to save your file. I'll call this Datakliq Excel demo. So I'll just call this Excel demo so I don't forget what I've done here. Now, right now, I want to just introduce us briefly. So it's going to be a brief introduction into something called VBA macro. So just a brief introduction into it. Probably in the advanced class, maybe we may look into full VBA macro and why you need to do macro. Why you need to do use VBA macro. So right now, I'm going to copy this sales by Power Pivot data. I'm going to be using it for my explanation of this VBA macro. You can use whatever data you want as well. I'm going to create a copy. So I've created a copy of this data. So it's loading. Can we all hear me? Kindly confirm you can hear me. So unfortunately, I think my Excel may crash. I just pray it doesn't. Okay. So it's okay. It's back on. So can we see my screen?
Yes,
Yes,
sir,
we
we can
can.
Yes,
see.
you can.
Okay. So imagine if your task, you are giving this data probably weekly. You are giving this data every single day, or you are probably giving this table every single day. This table is being populated every single day or so. And in this table, you are probably asked to do some maybe little design. That's just a small use case scenario. You probably come here, you keep a bold font to this table. You probably come here, your employee is interested in this product column. So you probably come here and probably, I don't know why you do this, but probably paint all of this red. Every time you open this workbook. Then you come here to this quantity sold. You probably highlight this first two. You color it yellow or so. Or let me even not go too ridiculous with that. And when you are done with all of this, you press Ctrl T. You press Ctrl T to make it a table. So your employee can see this. If your process was to do this every single time, every single day, do you know you can automate this process? You can automate just this simple process. I'll be listing some things you can do with VBA macro. I'll be just watching ahead toward, oh, what can you do with VBA macro? This simple use case scenario. So if you can remember the whole process I did, I came to this workbook. So I'm going to copy this, going to move it. I'll just hold my control key, then drag it to this side. So I've copied the sheet. My Excel is acting a little bit slow today. So I've copied it. So imagine we had to do this for all the sheets in the workbook. We had to do that same process we did here for all the sheets in the workbook. Probably we had 10 sheets. We had 10 or 20 sheets. You have to do that same process for all the sheets in the workbook. So this is where VBA macro comes into play. What is macro? Macro can help you to automate repetitive and stressful tasks with Excel. So VBA itself is actually the programming language behind Microsoft Office tools like Excel, PowerPoints, Word. So you can use VBA macro on PowerPoint. You can use it on Excel as well. So the reason why people use VBA, why would you need to use VBA? Why should you use VBA? So VBA represent Visual Basic for application, and like I said, can help you automate your life basically. If your task is repetitive, if you copy information from one workbook and paste it in another workbook, probably every day or every 2 weeks or so, you can automate this process with VBA. So yeah, with VBA. I just hope my Excel is fine. It has been rolling. I may soon have to close some tabs. I think I'll just close this. I'm done with this demonstration. So I'm going to close this. Okay, so hopefully it's better now. Yeah. So right now, I'm going to show us how we can just get started with VBA without writing the code itself. You can go ahead. I've written some VBA codes before, as well. But to be honest, the truth is, if you are just starting, and that's what I advise myself. I don't always use VBA all the time. Some scenarios which may cause me to use VBA, Visual Basic for application. But if you are just starting, to get started with VBA is very, very simple. All you just need to do is those process which I just showed us before. They are steps. The first step which I came here, I highlighted this first row. It was a step. I made it bold. It was a step. I came here and I colored this entire column red. I colored this entire column red. It was a step. It was a step. I came here and I made it a table. It was a step. Once you have your steps clearly thought about in your head, once the process can be attributed to steps, series of steps, sequence of steps, and you do it regularly, you can automate it with VBA macro. And let me show us how we can easily do this without writing code itself. So we have this developer tab on our screen. I showed us how we can get this developer tab. It's on your options dialog box. If you go to customize ribbon, you see developer tab. To get started with VBA, all you just need to do is click on under this developer tab. Those process which I mentioned is I can just click on record a macro. So record. The moment I click on record macro, I have this dialog box on my screen. So I need to give the macro a name. I'll call this automate design, automate underscore design. I'll call this automate underscore design. You have to provide it with a shortcut. What is the shortcut? You don't have to. You can provide it with a shortcut so that when you press the button, the macro can run itself. But you can even keep a button that you can just click on it and the macro will work itself. So I can give it a shortcut, probably a shortcut that I'm not really using frequently. Probably I don't press it frequently. I don't know what that will be. Maybe Control 7. Well, it's useful, but I don't know what that would be. So the next thing we can see store macro in this workbook. Do you want this macro to be stored in this workbook, in a new workbook, in a personal macro workbook? So we have this option. If you want it to be stored in this workbook, that means only in this workbook, you can select this workbook. If you want it to be in a new workbook, you can select that workbook. The next thing is to give it a description. What does this macro do? So it's best to give a description. So in case if others come to see the macro again, they will know what it's about. And I'll call this for automating design. Let me just call it this, and I click on OK. Shortcut key needs to be a letter, so that's also good to note. It needs to be a letter. I think all the letters I'm using it very, very frequently. Let me use Control I. But since it's this workbook, and I can always delete the macro as well. So I click on OK. OK. Automating design. So right now it is recording all the steps I'm taking place on my Excel. All the steps I'm going to take place on my Excel. Watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to come here, Control B, come here to this column, quantity, product quantity table. I like this column. Come to home, color it red. The macro is still recording the step, then Control T, or I should have gone to insert, then create a table, make it a table. I've made it a table, right? I've made it a table. Then the moment I've made it a table, I'm fine with it. I will now go to my macro, click on this developer and stop recording, stop recording, and stop recording, stop recording. So the moment I've stopped recording that macro, the moment I've stopped recording that macro has been saved. That macro has been saved. So I want to show us, let's use this on that macro on this sheet. So I'm going to control, then drag it here again. So I create a new worksheet. So I'm just getting multiple copies. So I want to show us that macro in action. For me to see the macro in action, I can press Alt F8 or click on this view macros. This is the automate design. I can run it, or I can even create a button so that anytime I'm on the workbook, if I click on that button, it will run the macro. I'll just come to insert shape and insert a button, a rectangle. I'll just draw this rectangle, just like the way you normally insert a shape, and I'll just type something on it. I'll call it design. I'll call it design. I have this button like this, then I'll right click on it and I'll click on assign macro. Assign macro. So right now I can assign it with a pre-existing macro. I can assign it with a new macro. I'll just assign it with a pre-existing macro, then click on OK. Click on OK. So right now, when I click on this button, watch what will happen. Did you see what happened? Did you see what happened? Okay, so let me come here again. Okay, it has run before, so it cannot overlap, so it can't run again. So I wanted to copy, let me copy it to another worksheet, to that other worksheet, so we can see. This worksheet has already been designed to what I did earlier. So we have this worksheet like this. It has been designed to what I did earlier. So can we see this? So it's the same with what I did here. It's the same with what I did here. So it's the same. So I'll come to this one, which I've not done anything here. I'll do Control V. So we have this macro here, and I'll just click on this button, design. And it has designed it to this. So this is a simple use case scenario of VBA record macro. Record macro. This is easy to do. You don't have to learn the syntax as well. But as you proceed, you may want to learn the syntax. You may want to learn, what is going on in the macro? What's going on in the macro? So you can, as you go on with in your career, you can start learning what's going on in the macro, and you can click on this Visual Basic interface. And it shows you the VBA interface which we have here. The top icon here is called the menu bar. These icons here are called the toolbar, and you have something called the project. The project refers to a workbook that is open, the name of the workbook that is open. And if you scroll down, you can see something called a module. A module is a place which houses your codes that you generated for you as well. I didn't want to show us how to start writing VBA macro, but I was just showing us we can, with just simple record macro, you can see what you can do with it. Let me show you us what I did with writing my own macro. So right now I'm going to delete this. I'm going to delete this. I'm just going to quickly show us this, then I will take questions. I know we have lots of questions. I'll take questions. I'm going to close this workbook. Then I'll close this workbook too. Let me just save. So right now, I created a MacBook. I created a macro. This one, I used the code. I didn't do the record macro. I used the code. I created a simple macro to do what? I have this workbook open, this workbook in my screen. Let me open it today. I have this workbook, rand name. Rand names represent random names, basically. I have this rand name workbook on my screen. I have this random name workbook on my screen. This file is in this random names workbook. This random names workbook. I have another file. I have another file which is testing. Testing. I have this testing file. This testing file which I have, which I closed earlier. But the scenario is, imagine my job probably daily was to be, I should open this file, copy what I have in this file, and come to this file here and paste it. Come to this file and paste it. What I have on this file, I should copy what I have on this file, then come to this file and paste it. Imagine that was my job. Imagine I was tasked to do this. But me, I like to be more efficient. I don't like to be doing repetitive tasks every time. So with macro, you can go ahead to do something like this. Imagine you have to be copying and pasting information from different workbook every single time into a single spreadsheet. With macro, you can do that. And let me show you the macro which I have that I did it. It's a simple macro though. But I'm going to go to VBA. I think I still have it open. Do I still have it open? Okay, I think I've closed it. I'm going to developer Visual Basic. So this is the macro I created. This is the macro I created for that. Then I'm going to run it, run the code. So let's see what happens. Yep, I'm going to run it. So the moment I've run the code, can we see what I have on my screen? This testing one workbook now has that information which I had in that random random name workbook. So this is just an idea. With Excel, there are a lot of cool things we can see on my screen. I didn't show us how to start writing macro because macro is actually a lot more advanced for advanced Excel users, not because you're basically programming with Excel. You're programming with Excel. So I didn't show that as well, but we do. It's good to stick in to the class. There's a lot that Datakliq has in store for us as well. So right now, I know we have questions, or I believe we should have questions. Any questions? Any questions? Raise your hand. So questions, questions, questions.
Hi, Delvis.
Hi, Esther. Good afternoon, Joseph.
Good afternoon.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to ask, if you go to the automate tab,
Mm-hmm.
you have you see record actions. Is it the
Mm-hmm.
same? Does it do the same work as record macros?
Okay. Thank you for that. So automate is it's to automate. What? Let me explain the story of automate. It's because of time, basically. But automate, what automate does is Microsoft released automate, I think, around 2022, and automate essentially is you using Office scripts in Excel. Office script is a type of TypeScript in Excel. The automate tab. The automate tab does recording actions. It works similar with what recording macro does. The developer and macro. It's just that macro was there before this automate came into play. And this automate, you need your file to be in your OneDrive for business file. It needs to be in OneDrive for business file or SharePoint file. That means your file needs to be online. Basically, your file it won't work if your automate button won't work if it's in your desktop, your local desktop. So automate came about in Excel around 2021, 2022, if I'm not mistaken. You can probably verify the date as well. So automate basically is you writing Office script, a form of TypeScript in Excel. So Excel has been advancing since, even before the inception of Python, which we now have in Python in Excel. The TypeScript has been available in Excel. Macro is the initial programming language which has been there since inception in Excel. So that's to answer your question.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Joseph.
Good afternoon.
Okay, I have basically two questions. On this
Mm-hmm.
macro that we did right now, that you created one and then use it to duplicate the sheet. What
Mm-hmm.
in a case where on the sheet you are adding more values to that sheet? Would the micro automatically convert everything to a table?
If your process is well documented, the macro should. So if you let me see, do I still have that file open? Okay, I don't think I do, unfortunately. So the what I was saying is the macro itself is seeing it as series of process, like you are doing series of steps. Those record, when you do the normal record, it is writing the code for you. It's just that you are not seeing the code. It's writing the code for you. What it will do is when you select this place, the macro will select these cells in your system. Just see the macro as like a robot doing it for you. What you will do for you, it will select these cells in the place. So if you are saying if you add more values down below, it's fine as far as the process of your macro involved you. If I'm to believe what you're saying is add more values below, as far as the process of your macro involved you to select these top rows, color this particular entire column. I didn't say color this and color this entire column, then make it a table. A table, when you make something a table, the table range keeps on growing when you add more values. Corey taught that in the class earlier before. As you add more values to the table, it keeps on growing. So it should grow. What the macro is doing, all those steps that you are recording, is writing the code. Is writing the codes that you are doing as you are recording the step.
All right, thank you. Then the second question is on the power pivot. What happens if I don't have a fat table for my from my data set?
Okay, so the thing is in your data set, in general, your data set should contain a fact. What a fact is basically a piece of information that grows every day. So I'm guessing what you actually mean is probably in your data set is not split into different tables like I just showed right
Yes.
now. Yeah, because like I said, when I was stating earlier, is we have something called a normalized and denormalized model. So a part of when you have all the information in a single spreadsheet, is a denormalized model, is a highly denormalized model in the sense that a large number of informations are on a single spreadsheet. The only issues which may happen with that is that is not as efficient to some extent, and it causes redundancies. That's repetition of the same piece of information every single time, and the rows will keep on growing. But like the initial pivot table file which I shared when I did the video, every single information was in a single spreadsheet. It works. Your pivot table would work normally. It's work normally. But when you need to, and when you are dealing with large volume of data, that's when you need to really do something called data modeling. You need to do something called data modeling, partitioning your data so that you can um so that for efficiency case, and so that you won't have Excel rolling issues. Trust me, if your data is starting to get to a million records, Excel will start rolling. And I'm pretty sure probably that's one of the issues um, I have when I open this file. So Excel will start rolling. Excel will start having issues. So I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so more questions. This is the end of the Excel session. I believe there should be questions. Um,
Hello.
yeah, you can go ahead.
Thank you very much for the class. I do appreciate. Please, I just want to ask question. I just want to be a real life scenario now. Now
Mm-hmm,
going forward, we are going to be taught Power BI and BI and SQL. Now I
mm-hmm,
see that there are some things that are linked to. I think I know a little bit of Power BI. There, data cleaning, both is in Excel and Power BI. But
mm-hmm,
now there are some companies that I see when they advertise, they will say just have the knowledge of Power BI, just have the knowledge of Excel. Some will say, no, some will not specify. So I don't know which one will be the best one to be using, especially when you have large data now that I can see that. But I can see that Excel is also having some things like this one you taught us now, modeling now, that we can easily use Excel instead of using Power BI. So I don't know, is it the type of job that will determine what we are going to be using, or we can just decide on our own that this is what I want to use or not. So I want to know how it will look like after the training. Thank you. Maybe
Okay,
you get
okay.
my question.
Yeah, yes, I got your question. So, yeah, nice question. I've seen situations like that. So, in regards to your question, the question, the answer is, the truth is, the tools they do to some extent they do sort of similar things, but they do distant different things in a way. Power BI is more Power BI is more get into reporting, visualizations, data storytelling, and even Power BI has another aspect which Excel doesn't factor in when we talk about the Power BI service. When you are thinking of how you can control access to your reports, when you need to grant something like row level access and some other things. So Power BI has its own robust use case scenario. SQL as well. SQL is structured query language. So SQL also has its own use case scenario, especially SQL when you see companies requesting solely for SQL is when they deal with huge databases, huge pieces of information which they don't even consider to store in an Excel file or so. So they use SQL to store of huge pieces of information to query it and to do some analysis on it. So in regards to your question, most of the times it's is left to company decision, like companies, okay, this one is what we require you to do more often than not. Though knowledge, I will always say knowledge in three is good. To some extent, you will most likely be more skilled or more specialized in one than another. I wouldn't say you should drop anyone. I won't say you should drop anyone, because the truth is, what you can do, there are some stuff you will do in Power BI, like all those design I was doing in Excel. With Power BI, I wouldn't spend that much time to do the same design. There are some stuff you do with SQL as well that you wouldn't spend as much time as you probably do with Power BI. And there are some stuff you can do with SQL that you can't do with Excel or Power BI. And the same way goes, there are some stuff you can do with Excel you can't do with SQL or Power BI. So they have their own use case scenario, their own use case scenario. One thing is, I wouldn't say you should be jack of all trade, master of none. I'll say you, as much as possible, try to master the tools which you use frequently. Try to master the tools you use frequently. If you are probably thinking of applying for a job, apply based on the skills you are most confident in. Most confident in. That doesn't mean you are limiting yourself to growth, but don't just be in a rush to say, okay, because I know people, they said, oh, they've learned data analysis. They did Excel probably 2 days or 3 days. Then they moved to Power BI, they moved to SQL, and they don't practice. They now move to R. They move to R, they move to Python, they don't practice. So it's important that as much as you learn these things, always practice, always practice, always practice. The more you practice, the more you use a skill, the more the skill become like muscle memory in your brain. You don't need to worry too much about it. I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so